Hey everybody, Jason Blaha with Ice Cream Fitness. I've had quite a few requests to cover this topic, but I've been a little reluctant to do so, and I did want to look into some legalities of me discussing this and how it fits in with the YouTube terms of service, and it should be okay, considering that the subject matter I am covering is actually legal in the country that I'm residing in, and in which my YouTube is registered. And that topic is use versus abuse of anabolic steroids in the bodybuilding and fitness community. And I'm just going to cut through the bullshit on this because way too many people bullshit around on this on their YouTube channels and in other places. Alright, here are the facts. Yes, there are many people and many of my subscribers, many watchers on YouTube who are lifetime naturals. They plan on staying natural. They're never going to touch anything. However, there are millions of people in the world who are not competitive athletes who use anabolic steroids for recreational purposes, for building muscle, to improve sex drive, for whatever their reasons are. It is very common. Millions of people around the world use them. I have dozens of subscribers who have told me they use them, and that is reality. That's the real world. And guys, I've been in this game a very, very long time. I've been around bodybuilding, powerlifting, and hardcore training for well over a decade, and I've pretty much seen it all. And I think the thing that concerns me is that in this current generation, with the YOLOs and everything, is that the attitude towards steroids have changed. People have lost their respect for them. And they've lost their respect for the fact that these are very powerful hormones. And I personally blame the media for this because the media in the US, for political reasons over fair play in sports, ran such a massive smear campaign and demonized the topic and had doctors backing it and everything, and have completely demonized the topic. They've left themselves looking like dumbasses when anybody actually looks at any of the data and research. And especially when you have other medical doctors who've pointed out that the risks have been vastly overstated. The odds that these things are going to kill you if you're conservative is relatively small. And you just don't see that many deaths attributed to them when compared to actually dangerous things like cigarettes, alcohol, street drugs. You just don't see that many deaths. They're very, very rare. So therefore, people see that and they just see hypocrisy, and they oftentimes take the assumption that they're just completely safe, and people have run wild. And I think we see a lot more abuse than we did in previous generations. In previous generations with this, what we saw were guys who taught each other that your training needs to be on point, that your nutrition needs to be on point, that everything else needs to be perfect, and that these things, that anabolic drugs are a tool to give an edge. They're just one tool in the arsenal. They are not the means by which you achieve your progress. They're not the means by which you attain your size and strength. They give you an edge. They're a tool. They're not the mechanisms by which you make it happen. And in the post-Dorian Yates world, as pro bodybuilders started using the larger and larger doses of different drugs, and it's trickled down into the mainstream community, and people have started to realize they're not as dangerous as they've been made out to be, that we see a lot of abuse, and we see a lot of guys who don't research first, who just jump in and they use tons of gear, and they use way more than they need. And I see that even on forums today. I mean, when I read through forums, I see guys who, when I look at that guy and his physique and what he's using, I expect him to be 30 or 40 pounds bigger than he is when he says what his cycle looks like, because it'll be a guy on a gram or a gram and a half of gear, and this guy from where he is could be gaining muscle on 250, 300 milligrams. This guy could be making good gains on that. And that's the sort of thing that we see, and we see kids jump on this or doing high-dose oral-only cycles and all sorts of nonsense. A lot of kids, I see a lot of guys who don't understand proper PCT. They don't know how to use ancillary drugs to control the side effects, to help with their cholesterol, to keep their testicles from shrinking, to avoid getting gyno, to avoiding bloat, to avoiding blood pressure. They don't have a clue how to do any of this. And these are all things that, when people do these things conservatively and responsibly and use the right ancillaries, these are things that simply don't happen. They're completely avoidable for people who are using these things. But people go overboard. They don't research first. They don't build a foundation first. They don't have their training in order, so therefore they need 2 to 3 times as many drugs to get the same results they could have if their training and nutrition was correct. And if they were doing everything else right, they would be making massively more gains off of the gear they're using on less gear, spend less money, have less side effects, and less health risks.